Hey guys, I'm Alan, and this is Revival Cycles custom Triumph Bonneville T120. What I want to talk to you guys today about is this sweet little number we just finished up. This is a brand new 2020 Triumph Bonneville T120, purchased by a client of ours to immediately turn into a mild custom. And by that I mean it looks fairly factory. It looks like a stock bike, but it's not. For those with a sharp eye, or keen eye I should say, you'll immediately notice quite a few differences between this bike and the brand new model that comes off the showroom floor. So this is obviously inspired by the late 50s, early 60s Triumphs of that era, the Bonnevilles of that era. You know, there's something really cool about these bikes from the factory, and that is they took a vertical twin and went from an air-cooled to a liquid-cooled version of it. And it still looks like an air-cooled bike. And of course, for those that don't know, air-cooled bikes have significantly cooler fins on the cylinders, and they just have this kind of open feel. Whereas a liquid-cooled bike, say a modern Ducati, you don't want to look at that engine because although if you appreciate what's on the inside, that may be cool, but what's on the outside is not very pretty. It's more of an appliance. What Triumph managed to do with this engine was make a modern engine with a lot of modern components and modern technology look vintage. So you've got this unit construction, gearbox, and engine. It's one unit, right? Look like a pre-unit because they put this cover here over the gearbox so it looks like the gearbox is separate, even though they're actually one big piece, which is far superior from a manufacturing standpoint, technology standpoint, and even usability standpoint. But this whole thing has much more power than your standard air-cooled engine. There's so many limitations with regards to air-cooled engines versus liquid-cooled engines, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So from the factory, for some reason, Triumph did all these finishing things still that made it look like a modern bike, and it could be for cost reasons, I don't really know. The bike's lovely to ride from the factory, but a lot of the pieces like this are painted, or this was black. The cam covers were black, this would be black, the gearbox would be black. So many things on the bike that from a vintage standpoint should just be bare aluminum, but even just them being silver paint would have been better, or silver powder coat versus what they put on these engines in black. So what do? We corrected all these wrongs at a pretty significant cost and a ton of labor. The triple clamps are now polished. So that's the aluminum parts that hold the front forks on. We put a chrome headlight brackets. We put chrome turn signals that are much smaller and much more, well, they work better, but they're also quite a bit more pleasing aesthetically. With a chrome headlight bucket, a custom aluminum fender with an appropriate bracket that looks a bit nicer. We polished the fork lowers that would have been black. That's also not vintage looking. We chrome dipped the tank and we welded in brackets to put this cool rack on the tank. We added a pretty cool custom fuel cap filler. And then also we made custom brackets to hold panniers, right? So we've got just right here mocked up our panniers, which are, you make these in-house, Revival Limited. But we custom made this bracket and powder coated it with Cobra clips, the female Cobra clips to accept it. We put on custom Öhlins shocks that were made specifically for this bike and the passenger's weight. We bought these custom, actually, aluminum side covers and then chrome dipped them and then put this hand-painted design based on the customer spec. It's a long story, but if you check out our Revival history lessons at Revival Cycles on Instagram, you will understand what the 59 on this build stands for. Then we, of course, took the Triumph premium seat, stripped it down and put this really cool blue leather with the white stitching, the white piping, custom embroidered Triumph on the back of it to give it that vintage feel. We've got full custom aluminum rear fender, and we adapted this more vintage style aluminum taillight housing and taillight and polished that to match. On the other side you can't really see, but the side cover for what is the primary has also been polished. We've got a full bolt-on exhaust by Vance & Hines. Really makes the bike sound well. So that covers the basics of the outward aesthetics of the bike. We also did a few things that I think are pretty cool. We bought these camshafts overseas. They claim to do a bit more for the bike and give it a lot more low-end torque grunt. We weren't looking to make it into a performance machine. This thing comes with about 80 horsepower, but now on the dyno, after tuning with a fuel computer And new cams, it's putting out over 100 horsepower, which is pretty significant. It feels really quick and it sounds really nice. Really, in my opinion, the way the factory bikes sounded back in the day, but a lot throatier. I should mention too that the front forks have Öhlins internals, and that means they look almost like just the factory Triumph front forks until you look at the top and you see right away it's fully adjustable Öhlins suspension. So this thing handles really well, stops really well, it goes really well, and it sounds awesome. And then of course it looks vintage. It looks much more vintage than the vintage style factory Bonneville. I think it turned out really well. I say it's probably the classiest custom we've ever made. It's very traditional with a modern twist, and I wish Triumph built it this way. I have a feeling if they did, it would cost twice the price because it costs more than that to do this custom work to it. But ultimately, for this client and for any distinguished client, I think this is the ultimate brand new Triumph Bonneville. Now I think it's time to go for a ride. I haven't ridden it since we finished it, because we finished it about 20 minutes ago. I'm gonna go for a ride and then put it in a van, and it's headed directly to the client. So, I've gotten on the bike. We're in Austin. It's a Friday. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So of course, there's traffic. You might also notice my sweet blue gloves. Now, they're not the same color as the sweet blue leather on this seat, but for a limited time, go to our website, you can get some. We've got a bunch of different colors of our leather gloves that are really our best seller. And this bike is just so comfortable. I mean, I'm 6'2", guys, and I'm not crunched up. I've got plenty of leg room. And then of course there's the suspension. I rode this bike, probably put 50 miles on it before we took it apart. And it felt good, but now it feels positively sporty. And the best part about the Öhlins suspension we put on it is we've tuned it to be comfortable, but it's just acting a bit more, I should say refined, you know? And of course, this bike now has about 200 or 300 miles on it. A good portion was on the dyno, but we all test rode it to make sure that it was really well sorted for the client. And it's behaving like it came from the factory this way. And I mean that. It's very obvious from the rumble of the engine. It's obvious because of the idle. But this thing has a different cam in it. It's not just a factory smooth running Triumph built for everyone. It's specifically built for our client. We went right back with the factory tires, and there's no problem with these factory tires. They're perfectly fine. I've been trying to get them to skip a beat, and it's not working. Everything's still doing what it's supposed to do. It just feels good. I'm sure you guys can tell by looking at it. Hopefully you can hear it, because the deep, low rumble without it being loud. I'm still talking at just a normal pace. I'm not speaking loudly. What I really love about this bike is that I could take my wife on it, grab a passenger, and end up with comfortable. You could ride it all afternoon, right out to the hill country. Do what you need to do, and then when you feel like it, you just go. Literally, the traction control just kicked in. Which is great. I mean, to have the bike want to peel out and not just wheelie all over the place. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed our little Triumph mild custom. And you watch our channel. Like, subscribe, comment, tell us I'm dumb, tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Now's the time of video where most people ask for money or donations or whatever. I'm not going to ask you for that. What I'm going to say to you is, if you want to see more videos and you want to learn more of what we've learned, and you want to see a deep dive into a lot of these topics, go to our website and buy something. We sell everything from motorcycle gear, helmets, motorcycle parts, specialized tools. We sell lots of things, and they've all taken us years to figure out what the best stuff is, and we figured it out. So go to revivalcycles.com. There's some really good stuff there. Everything from like kick-ass hand grips from Posh to Radiance LED lighting and everything in between. We want to teach you what we know, but this stuff takes time and it takes real effort to make these videos and make them good for you guys. So go support us by helping yourself to the cool stuff you already need. And it helps us because we make a little bit of profit and then we can justify doing more videos. Thanks for your support.